Hey, we're going to cover the Persian and the Greek Wars, or Chapter 5 here. We're going to get into our classical Greek unit, I suppose. So what we're looking at here, when we look at Greece, and a lot of Western civilizations, textbooks or classes will begin with Greece as the foundation for Western civilization, because this is the first time that I suppose really it's the first time that you have something to compare the West to. And so in this situation between Greece and Persia, the Greeks are going to represent the West and the Persians are going to represent the non-West. And so Persia in and of itself, kind of takes on this villainous role in this conflict, but it's definitely not it's not the quote unquote evil empire that sometimes it gets made out to be. It's pretty similar to the empires of Mesopotamia. In fact, the Persians actually free the Hebrews from captivity in Babylon. And so there's some positivity that comes out of the Persian Empire as well. But this is the first time that East kind of meets West and West prevails. And so when we look at this, so when we look at the Persian Empire, it's really going to be founded in like modern day Iran. In fact, the Persian language is going to be Farsi, and the language in Iran spoken today is actually Farsi. And so when we look at that, Greece is seen as the birthplace of this modern Western world, and Persia is an outside force that's going to do battle with Greece, and ultimately Greece is going to prevail. um I don't know. Persia begins to grow. They take over lands that were once owned by the Assyrians. They conquer Anatolia. They take over Greek colonies in Iona. And so you start to see, Cyrus the Second, and then later Darius. He's going to conquer conquer lots and lots of people, right? And so a lot of what we know about the Persian kings are going to be written down in these cylinder or clay tablets, in which the Persian kings basically tell the story of their conquests and how wonderful they are, and all that fun stuff. It's really not all that important in the overall story of Western civilization, but it gives you a little bit. It gives you a little bit of background, and the two overall. I think there's a textbook question. So if you're watching it before you read the textbook, one of the claim to fame of all, or the claim to power of Persian empires or kings, are the fact that they have some sort of connection to the bloodline, they're descendants from other kings, and the gods chose them, right? And they're the active agent on they're the active agent of the Almighty on Earth. And so Cyrus conquers, Iran into Afghanistan, and all the way to the Mediterranean Ocean, modern day Turkey, and you can kind of see here. And so, when we're looking at the Persian Empire, Cyrus the Second, Cyrus the Great conquers everything in green, and then we add a little bit of the blue here, and so we're conquered Egypt and whatnot, and then we have Darius that's going to come around, and Darius the First is really going to be our first contact with the Greeks. We're going to have we're going to have rebellion in some of these Ionian colonies over here, and he's going to start to creep in on mainland Greece, and that's going to be that's going to be the catalyst for our conflict. The Persians, when they conquer people, are actually pretty hospitable. I mean, obviously there's going to be heavy taxation and all that, but there's not like the cruel treatment of the Assyrians, or the widespread genocide of the Mongols, or whatever we're going to see in the future. And so you're going to have you're going to have lots and lots of different people eventually kind of rise up against the Persians, but it's not going to be ever really be widespread. And so one of these one of these conflicts is going to be the is going to lead to this problem with Greece and Persia. Darius is you know, we kind of chatted about him a little bit with he's going to lead his empire into the Indian Peninsula and take over the Indus River. He's going to control the Tigris and the Euphrates and the Nile, and so he's going to be the first person to actually kind of Indus, Mesopotamian rivers, and the Nile River all at the same time. He's the first to control that, and so we have one of the great colonies in Ionia that rises up against Persia, and they reach out to Athens, and the Athenians reach out, send help. And they fight against the Persians, and this is going to infuriate Darius. And Darius is, not one to take this problem lightly. And so Persia goes in and they crush this rebellion in Ionia, and because the Athenians offered help, he plans to basically just take over all of Greece. Hey, they're next on the list anyways, and so they go. And so the Persians send a small army of about 25,000 troops, and they land off of Marathon, Greece, which is about ironically, 26 miles from Athens, and the runner runs from Marathon to Athens to tell the Athenians that the Persians are here, and of course he collapses and dies. And so the Athenians send a runner to Sparta to ask for help, and the Spartans are in the middle of like a celebration, right, a religious ceremony, and they're like, yeah, we'll help, but we're going to do this first, and so we'll be there when we get done. And so Athens forms up its army. They have 10,000 hoplites, and they send them out to the battlefield. And so obviously they're going to be outnumbered almost or a little bit more than 2-1. The Persians at this point, they'll roll in with an army of 500,000, 250,000 people. Their armies are so big that, their histories talk about the armies drinking a river dry. And so, 25,000 people is like kind of almost like a scouting party for the Persians. And they roll up on the coast of Marathon. The hoplites from Athens show up, and they just kind of watch each other. And so Persia comes up with this idea that, hey, you know what? We have these guys basically outnumbered 2-1. Let's go ahead and split our forces. We'll put half of them in a boat. We'll float them around Athens, and we'll conquer Athens while it's undefended. Well, the Athenians go ahead and they attack the Persians, and they just rout them on the field. The phalanx, the formation, and the hoplite unity and teamwork overcome the Persians very, very easily, and they beat that 10-12,000 man Persian army, and then they hustle back to Athens, and they prevent the Persians from landing. And so like the Persians return home, and they're defeated. And so Darius in 486, he's planning a full-scale invasion of Greece when he meets his untimely demise and passes away, and he gets replaced by his son Xerxes. And here's Xerxes in the great movie 300. And if you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to watch it. And it's wonderful. There's a bunch of dudes just running around ripped out of their mind without just all beefed up. But it's not very I don't know. There's a little bit of history that's in it, but it's take that history with a grain of salt. There's some problems, and there's Xerxes and other probably more realistic version of him. All right, and so the Athenians believe that the Persians are going to return, and they absolutely are. And the Athenians have this newly discovered silver mine that they control, and so they're mining silver, and they're taking that newfound wealth and they start to put it into a navy. And so they build this super strong navy, and they build these hundreds and hundreds of warships, that that look like this. You have hundreds of Greek citizens, and you have a ramming rod on one end, right? And you're going to row and sail into your enemy's ship, and hopefully you knock out their rudder. And so, interestingly enough, one of the things that this does is it provides lower, I guess, lower class or poor members of people from Athens to participate in the defense of the city, because before if you were a hoplite, you had to have your armor, your shield, your spear. All of those things are relatively expensive. If now all of a sudden we have hundreds of people that we need to throw on a boat to pull an oar, and there's no equipment necessary, and so more common people are able to help out during that time. So in 480, Xerxes is just going to dispatch an army of over 200,000 people. We talked about that, 12,000 ships, a huge military to come and destroy Greece. And so to move this many people, it's going to take some time, and the Greeks are going to see them coming, right? And so the Greeks are going to get together, they're going to form this coalition, and they're like, oh, how are we best going to fight the Persians? And the Spartans decide that they are going to lead the ground forces, and Athens is going to lead the navy. And so probably the most famous battle that's going to come about because of this invasion is going to be the Battle of Thermopylae, where you have this small group of 300 Spartans that are going to be led by King Leonidas. And there's a small mountain pass that the Persians have to come through, and the Spartans are going to stand there and guard this area to the last man, right? All the Spartans eventually are dealt with and killed by the Persians, but it takes time. The Spartans are going to use the terrain to their advantage. Their military formations are going to allow them to delay the Persians, not indefinitely, but enough time for Athens to get their navy in place. And so, if we were in class together, we would take some time. We would watch clips from the movie 300. And I would encourage you, if you're interested, to do that, or watch it on Netflix or whatever, just for the drama of the situation. But the Persians show up. They eventually defeat the Spartans. They move on, and they destroy they run into the navy from Athens, the Athenian navy, and the navy from Athens just destroys the Persian navy in this day-long naval battle. And I think there's another 300 movie that's actually about that, if you're interested in that as well. And so the Persians, they lose their navy, but they still have a formidable ground force. And so the Persians just walk across Greece. There's so many of them that the Greeks put up a fight, but there's just not Greece doesn't have the ability to withstand Persia. However, Persia doesn't have the ability to reinforce their land forces at this point because of the loss of their navy. And so Xerxes is going to withdraw his navy. He's going to leave. Persia's not going to be able to support its troops or to colonize Greece. And so ultimately, the Persians win, but they're unable to hold their winnings. In the coming years, Greece and Persia are going to fight a couple more battles, and as it comes, the Greeks are going to win time and time again. And so the Athenians are going to win multiple battles against the Persian navy. Sparta is going to lead some invasions of Iona, and they're going to defeat the Persians, and the Persians ultimately just give up on trying to control Greece or trying to control Greek colonies, because it's too expensive. It's just a matter of economics. They could probably defeat the Greeks in full battle, but are they really going to get a return on their investment in something like that? And so this ultimate victory against the Persians is gonna, it's shocking, because the Persians are the most dominant empire in the world during that time, and it's going to fill the Greeks with this confidence that their way of life is better than everybody else, right? And so this should have been this big unifying movement and unifying event where Greece comes together as one. But what it ultimately does is it's ultimately going to divide Greece into two, between Athens and Sparta. And because both of these polis are going to jockey for top position. And so to create let's say, just to create a deterrent for future Persian invasions, Athens is going to create the Delana League, right? Delanan League, and they're going to they're going to have multiple polis come and join them, and then Athens, because it has the largest navy, and it kind of starts to use its power to kind of bully the other members of this league into doing what they want. And so the Persians are pushed out of Greece, but Athens doesn't allow anybody to resign. And so then Athens starts to actually put troops in other city-states, right? And they put new laws and taxes on these members of this defense league, and Athens starts to benefit financially from this, right? Some people try to revolt and leave, and Athens sends in its military to control them. In 460, Athens helps the Egyptians revolt against the Persians, and they lose. And because of this loss, they take the money of the treasury from the island of Delanos, and they move it to Athens, claiming that it would be safer. But really what it does is it just gives the Athenians more control over these funds. And so, the Athenians control this. They use money, common defense money, to build things like the Pantheon and building projects for Athens itself. And so to counter this growth of Athenian power, Sparta creates something called the Peloponnesian League. And so they're going to have Corinth and Sparta and Thebes and others join. And while Sparta is definitely the dominant member, they never really take advantage of the other people the way that Athens does. And so in 431, Sparta and Athens, this competition for power, it kind of comes to a head, and there's a fight. And Sparta obviously has the better ground forces, Athens has the better navy, and Sparta is able to attack Athens and actually besiege the city, but they're not able to control it. So for a 10-year period of time, the Spartan armies just camped outside of Athens, and really nothing changes for the Athenians. Nothing really goes in, nothing really goes out. And they can travel. They can travel by sea because they do control the sea, but they really aren't allowed to move by land. And so in 415, after about 15 years or so, Athens decided that they're going to attack Syracuse, and they're going to try to move the Spartan army away from Athens. And when they do that, the Athenians are defeated, and they start to lose control inside of Athens. And so you have a slave revolt, and slaves escape out of Athens, and Sparta takes control of the silver mines. And so when they do that, now all of a sudden Athens is reduced in power and wealth. And then the Spartans attack the navy of Athens, and they defeat them. And Athens really has no other course but to sue for peace. And so Sparta destroys the defenses of Athens, but they kind of leave the city untouched. Hey, they're still Greek brothers or whatever. And so the aftermath of this Peloponnesian War is the fact that Athens is obviously going to be greatly reduced in power, but Sparta is actually going to ally with the Persians, and they're going to start to kind of take on some of the ideas of diplomacy from maybe the Athenians to try to create longer term peace. They're more open. Sparta is going to change away from focusing solely on ground power, and they're going to build up their navy. But probably the biggest thing that's going to come about this is as Sparta becomes the main the main city state of Greece. It grows in wealth, and when it grows in wealth, some Spartans become super wealthy, and so when they start to become super wealthy, they start to find ways or pass laws to have their sons avoid the rigorous military training, right? And so when they do that, they buy their kids out of military service. And as some people get richer, some Spartan citizens are going to become poorer and poorer, and are going to be unable to afford their military equipment. And so you're going to have this this demise in the Spartan military power. And so somewhere around 371, the city-states of Thebes are going to defeat the Spartans in combat. And so this mystique of Sparta kind of starts to fall away. And right around that time, you're going to see the Polis start to create kind of a professional standing army, and so these hoplite republics are going to be done away with. So instead of having citizens volunteer their time to defend individual city states, each city state is going to start to hire and pay its own army. And so you're going to have professional soldiers. And so what that's going to do, it's going to take away the power of the common people that had that kind of bargaining block where, hey, you know what, I served in this military, and because I did, and you need my services, I should have some political power. Once we replace that with a professional standing army, the governments of Greece start to move away from democracy, and they start to be controlled by the rich. And so you sort of see oligarchies replace this idea of democracy, or you start to see tyrants start to abuse their power during that time frame. And so as that happens, Greece starts to weaken militarily. Persia kind of reinserts itself in places along the outside of the Greek empire. You have the Anatolian Greek colonies on the coast of Mediterranean, in modern day Turkey, that the Persians conquer. It's just this it's just this slow weakening of Greek power over time, and then eventually the Romans are going to come. And so even though the Greeks win the war over the Persians and they preserve their way of quote unquote Western existence, their inability to work with each other results in the weakening as an empire that eventually falls. Okay, so that is the first I guess that's the overview of what's going to happen to Greece. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about classical Greek society in the next chapter, and then we'll move on to Alexander the Great, and we'll go from there. All right, so hey, thank you, and we'll catch you in the next chapter. Bye-bye.